Okay, y'all, I'm coming with y'all on this Monday on some sad news. Hopefully I get it uploaded by the night time, since I'm not doing no editing with this video. And then I don't have to go through my Power Director nor Magnet software. And once again, y'all, I'm sorry for my notifications. But just to show y'all my screen real quick, this is my new editing software that I'm working with. I'm still trying to work with. But this is my regular one that I deal with from time to time. But whenever I'm doing videos like this where I'm sharing my screen, I can just upload it directly from the screen. What's this called? From the screencast. So yeah, I got multiple ways to upload, y'all. And then also I upload from my phone, so technically 4 ways: the Magnet software, the Power Director, Screencast-O-Matic, and then my phone. But on to the story. Sadly, we done lost John Lewis over the weekend. Civil rights era, dies at age 80, honey. So images of his beating at Selma shocked the nation and led to swift passage of the 1965 Voter Rights Act. He was later called the conscience of the Congress. So this is a pretty lengthy article. We're going to go over it. Should take about 20 minutes to read through. So it says, Representative John Lewis, a son of sharecroppers and an apostle of nonviolence who was bloodied at... See, that's the problem with... I told y'all. No, not to shade the dead or nothing. But I told y'all, see, Christianity and all forms of it kept us docile. See, soon as we became turn the left cheek and give it up to Jesus, this is the shit that starts happening to us. You know, over the years, I went more from a Martin Luther King approach to respecting more of Malcolm X by the day. I never thought I would be a Malcolm X type of girl, but as I've gotten older, I've gotten more accustomed to the Malcolm X approach and the Black Panthers approach, as opposed to the darn going Reverend pastor apostle approach. But nonetheless, who was bloodied at Selma and across the Jim Crow South in the historic struggle for racial equality, and who then carried a mantle of moral authority into Congress, died on Friday. He was 80 years old. So he lived a pretty long life. His death was confirmed in a statement by Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Mr. Lewis, a Georgia Democrat, announced, oh Lord, who Georgia? Who we got in place of darn going Lewis? Who we got in place of Mr. Lewis? And I know this is the wrong time to think about shit like this, but y'all know we are in anonymous times, and we got crooked Democrats and crooked Republicans. So whoever replaces that seat, I hope is a good Republican or a good Democrat, y'all. Y'all know I'm not for no particular generalization of parties, because both of them fucked up, but hopefully somebody who replaces him have equally, or at least a tenth of good policy and morals that Mr. Lewis had. But going on though with the article. A Georgia Democrat announced on December 29th that he had stage 4 pancreatic cancer and vowed to fight it with the same passion with which he had battled racial injustice. I have been in some kind of fight for freedom, equality, basic human rights for nearly my entire life, he said. Lord, this cancer ain't no joke. And then old girl who supposed to be on the Supreme Court, I heard that she's darn on her cancer done came back. Oh my goodness. This just ain't looking good on the Democratic front, honey. And I'm talking about the good Democrats is actually, for everybody. Not them darn on, them Dixiecrats that are still up in there, honey. That's pretending to be, for everybody. But anyways, it goes on further to say, on the front lines of the bloody campaign to end Jim Crow laws with blows to his body and a fractured skull to prove it, Mr. Lewis was a valiant stalwart of the civil rights movement and the last surviving speaker from the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom in 1963. More than half a century later, after the killing in May of George Floyd, a black man in police custody in Minneapolis, Mr. Lewis was welcomed the resulting global demonstrations against police killings of black people and more broadly against systemic racism in many corners of society. He saw those protesters as a continuation of his life's work, thought his illness had left him to watch from the sidelines. Well, that, and we still in the midst of COVID, so I definitely wouldn't want him out there anyways. Especially dealing with stage 4 cancer. Oh my goodness. It was very moving to see hundreds of thousands of people from all over America and around the world take to the streets to speak up, to speak out, to get into what I call good trouble. Mr. Lewis told CBS This Morning in June, this feels and looks so different, he said, of the Black Lives Matter movement, which drove the anti-racism demonstrations. It is so much more massive and all-inclusive, he added. There will be no turning back. Then it goes on to iterate that he died on the same day as did another civil rights star, the Rev. C.T. Vivian. Oh Lord, spelled just like Vivian Alame off of Days of Our Lives. Y'all know I'm a soap opera junkie, honey. I had to make a soap reference. But a close associate of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Mr. Lewis' personal history paralleled that of the civil rights movement. He was among the original 13 Freedom Riders, the black and white activists who challenged segregated interstate travel in the South in 1961. Hold on, y'all. I'm sorry, y'all. That was an important call from the bank. Y'all know I'm in the process of, changing over my aesthetics practice. I'm changing over my name, getting my business account set up. So that was the bank giving me the logistics on that, of, giving me the offers and all that. And I got to check that email after this. In addition to giving me an update on the time, they said it. Now, I put expedited shipping, which takes 14 days for my stuff to process, but she said it might take a little bit sooner. So yeah, I had to, discuss all that real quick, but needless to say, that'll be another video, another day. I give y'all the update on my business ventures. But, sadly, back to the news of Mr. Lewis, passing. The article goes on to say Mr. Lewis led demonstrations against racially segregated restrooms, hotels, restaurants, public parks, and swimming pools, and he rose up against other indignities of second-class citizenship. At nearly every turn, he was beaten, spat upon, or burned with cigarettes. He was tormented by white mobs and absorbed body blows from law enforcement. See, once again, I ain't gonna be too docile. Even a darn gone dog, if you kick it enough, a dog will bark. Snap back. A cat will swipe at you. Honey, I don't know where we just supposed to stand still and leave it up to a person in the sky to, God gave you hands and fighting skills for a reason. Somebody spit upon you, you whoop their ass. That's the mantra that I go by. Hell, don't it say in the Bible that God don't help those that don't attempt to help themselves? Honey, he will give you the strength to darn gonna knock your enemies the F down if need be. That's how I think of it. Shit. I wish like hell I would somebody spit on me and I just darn gonna take up. I'd be 10 times worse than New York Paula off of darn gone Flavor Flav. But anyways, moving back on March 7, 1965, he led one of the most famous marches in American history. In the vanguard of 600 people demanding the voting rights they had been denied, Mr. Lewis marched partway across the Edmund Pettus Bridge in Selma, Alabama, into a waiting phalanx of state troopers in riot gear. Ordered to disperse, the protesters silently stood their ground. The troopers responded with tear gas and bull whips and rubber tubing wrapped in barbed wire. What the world is that? In the melee, which came to be known as Bloody Sunday, a trooper cracked Mr. Lewis' skull with a billy club, knocking him to the ground, then hit him again when he tried to get up. Where was the Black Panthers? Or was the Black Panthers not allowed to be there with the peaceful protesters? See, that's why I say, that's the only thing I disagree with. In that moment, it should have been an equal darn on defense right there. You had the First Amendment right to assemble. And you also had the Second Amendment right to bear arms. Televised images of the beaten Mr. Lewis and scores of others outraged the nation and galvanized support for the Voting Rights Act, which President Lyndon B. Johnson presented to a joint session of Congress 8 days later and signed into law on August the 6th. A milestone in the struggle for civil rights, the law struck down the literacy test that black people had been compelled to take before they could register to vote and replaced segregationist voting registers with federal registers to ensure that black people were no longer denied the ballot. Once registered, millions of African Americans began transforming politics across the South. They gave Jimmy Carter, a son of Georgia, his margin of victory in 1976 presidential election. A popular poster proclaimed. And then it goes on further to say, hands that once picked cotton now can pick a president, and their voting power opened the door for black people, including Mr. Lewis, to run for public office. Elected in 1986, he became the second African American to be sent to Congress from Georgia since Reconstruction, representing a district that encompassed much of Atlanta, aka Black Hollywood for some folks. Conscience of the Congress. So while Mr. Lewis represented Atlanta, his natural constituency was disadvantaged people everywhere. Known less for sponsoring major legislation than for his relentless pursuit of justice, he was called the conscience of the Congress by his colleagues. A lot of C's up in there. Try saying that about 5 times fast. Call conscious Congress colleagues. When the House voted in December 2019 to impeach President Trump, Mr. Lewis' words rose above the rest. When you see something that is not right, not just, not fair, you have a moral obligation to say something. He said on the House floor, to do something, our children and their children will ask us, what did you do? What did you say? For some, this vote may be hard, but we have a mission and a mandate to be on the right side of history. Sadly, the Senate didn't think the same way, y'all. His words resonated as well after he saw the video of Minneapolis police officer kneeling on Mr. Floyd's neck for more than 8 minutes as Mr. Floyd gasped for air. I was so painful. It made me cry, Mr. Lewis told CBS this morning. People now understand what the struggle was all about. He said, it's another step down a very, very long road towards freedom, justice for all humankind. And then there's another picture right there with him and, the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. A white ally right here. Hopefully it wasn't one of the side people. Okay, is it too soon for the jokes, y'all? Yeah, I mean, she is looking at darn on Dr. Martin Luther King with a little special. Okay, let me stop, y'all. Let me stop. Darn, what? I hate that this icon is right here, because every time I try to click the down button, I accidentally click here and all my notifications come up. When he was younger, his words could be more militant. History remembers the March on Washington for Dr. King. I have a dream speech, but Mr. Lewis started and energized the crowd with his own passion. By the force of our demands, our determination, and our numbers, he told the cheering throne that August day we shall splinter the segregated South into 1,000 pieces and put them together in the image of God and democracy. We must say, wake up America, wake up, for we cannot stop and we will not and cannot be patient. This is quite a lengthy article, y'all. But I'm going to keep on reading it through. His original text was more blunt. We will march through the South, through the heart of ditzy the way Sherman did. He had written President John F. Kennedy's Civil Rights Bill was too little too late. He had written demanding which side is the federal government on. But Dr. King and other elders, Mr. Lewis was just 23, worried that those first draft passages would offend the Kennedy administration, which they felt they could not alienate in their drive for federal action on civil rights. They told him to tone down the speech. There they go, trying to tell us to tone down pain for somebody else. I swear that white privilege is a motherfucker, honey. We got to tone down our doggone pain and our expression that we going through during times that we can get hosed down, chased by dogs, hit with billy clubs and all that. And we worried about how somebody's feelings are going to be when we darn gonna physically being tortured. But I digress. Still, the crowd estimated that more than 200,000 roared with approval at his every utterance. An earnest man who lacked the civil tongue of other civil rights orators, Mr. Lewis could be obnoxious, tenacious, and single-minded. Y'all tell me how to phonetically... Did I get that one correctly? Pugnacious? That's a new one on me, y'all. I knew what tenacious means. And single-minded, and he led with a force that commanded attention. So the last I'm hoping is the last paragraph. He gained a reputation for having an almost mythical faith in his own survivability. One civil rights activist who knew him well told the New York Times in 1976, some leaders, even the toughest, would occasionally finesse a situation where they knew were going to get beaten or jailed. John never did that. He always went full force into the fray. Mr. Lewis was arrested 40 times from 1960 to 1966. Hot damn. He was repeatedly beaten senseless by the Southern policemen and the freelance hoodlums. During the Freedom Rides in 1961, he was left unconscious in a pool of his own blood outside the Greyhound bus terminal in Montgomery, Alabama. After he and others were attacked by hundreds of white people, he spent countless days and nights in county jail and 31 days in Mississippi's notoriously brutal Parchman Penitentiary. Okay, I'm going to give y'all this last paragraph and then I'm going to pin this for y'all to read the rest. Because you know New York Times is not paying me. And I actually got to go look at some emails that do, honey. So, you know, no shade to the late great Mr. Lewis. But you know time is of the essence of money, honey. So, going on, once he was in Congress, Mr. Lewis voted with the most liberal Democrats thought. He also showed an independent streak in his quest to build what Dr. King called the beloved community, a world without poverty, racism, or war. Mr. Lewis adopted the phrase. He routinely voted against military spending. He opposed the Persian Gulf War of 1991 and the North American Free Trade Agreement, which was signed in 1992. He refused to take part in the Million Man March in Washington in 1995, saying that statements made by the organizer Louis Farrakhan, leader of the Nation of Islam, were divisive and bigoted. I mean, there's some validity to that, and Lord knows I don't like, Louis Farrakhan myself, but, I don't believe in demonizing him all the way, so I got to give, the late Mr. Lewis some pushback on that, because it's like, I can see both sides of that. Once again, y'all know I don't fuck with the Farrakhan, honey, but I see some right and wrong in both sides of the perspective, and I just want to leave it at that, honey. Honey, shout out to Farrakhan, though. His ass, ain't he like 96, 97? Ain't looking a day over 72, honey. Farrakhan is up there with darn on Betty White, just keeping on pushing, honey. But anyways, in 2001, Mr. Lewis skipped the inauguration of George W. Bush, saying that he thought that Mr. Bush, who had become president after the Supreme Court halted a vote recount in Florida had not been truly elected. In 2017, he boycotted Mr. Trump's inauguration, questioning the legitimacy of his presidency because of evidence that Russia had meddled in the 2016 election on Mr. Trump's behalf. Okay, I guess we got one more paragraph, y'all. I said this was going to be 20 minutes. It looked like it's going to be about 24. That earned him a derisive Twitter post from the president. Congressman John Lewis should spend more time on fixing and helping his district, which is in horrible shape and falling apart, not to mention crime infested, rather than falsely complaining about the election results. All talk, no action or results, sad. Mr. Trump's attack marked a sharp detour from the respect that had been accorded Mr. Lewis by previous presidents, including most recently Barack Obama. Damn. Why did I want to say Barack like off of Mortal Kombat? But Barack Obama. Mr. Obama awarded Mr. Lewis the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the nation's highest civilian honor, in 2011. And there's that picture right there. In bestowing the honor in a White House ceremony, Mr. Obama said generations from now, when parents teach their children what it meant by courage, the story of John Lewis will come to mind, an American who knew that change could not wait for some other person or some other time, whose life is a lesson in the fierce urgency of now. So that is all that I got for Mr. Lewis. Like I said, I definitely implore y'all to read the rest of this. It's a good lengthy read, y'all. I gave y'all 20 minutes of narration, but it's still quite a bit that goes over his life. You know, he had a very long, extensive, life that was for the cause. So I definitely implore y'all to read the rest of this. As y'all see, I'm still scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. If I was to do all this narration, it'd be about an hour and some change. Because y'all know I just can't read through. I got to give my 22 cents on everything. But yeah, for time purposes and, the fact that, like I said, I'm a busy girl, y'all. I'm about to get back to working at this second job and I'm starting up my business. So I got to get on off. But once again, the article will be down below. Rest in power to John Lewis. Definitely. Oh, Lord, like I said, he would definitely be missed, especially during these doggone Ottoman's times, honey. I hate to see who the replacement's going to be. Especially if that orange get a second term, Lord knows. Ugh. But anyways, y'all leave y'all thoughts down below. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all soon with more videos. Mwah.